But yeah, let's talk about Harry Potter. We haven't already been talking about.
This is actually just a Harry Potter podcast. This is not.
We should do one.
I would be so for that. Like, I want a podcast where we just talk about movies. Like, I'm here for that. I will do it anytime you need me to.
Let's do it. Okay. So I don't know how to introduce myself. Hi.
Okay, well, tell me who you are and what you do, and that should be good. Because the first question I have is, can you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about yourself anyway? So.
Oh, okay. So hi, I'm Jos. Well, what I really want to do is make films and TV shows and all that fun stuff. So yeah, that's me. I don't know what else you want to know.
I think that's solid. Yeah, because I never know how to answer that question either. The second someone's like, so tell me about yourself, I'm like, I never knew her.
I like to sleep.
I like to sleep. Sometimes I'll eat some food. That's about it.
Breathing, I guess, is okay.
Yeah, my heart beats. I know, I'm so quirky.
I also have a dog that's currently sleeping over there. I don't know if you can see him.
Tell us the name of your dog.
His name is Arpeggio. We call him Arpy or Dum Dum.
I'm Megan. That's all I got.
We went
to school together.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. Go for it. Introduce me.
What?
Introduce me. No, go. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say I didn't actually really meet you until my second semester there.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the beginning of my senior year.
Yeah, I remember I saw you during Uprooted because you were in either film workshop or something. And I continuously thought that entire semester, this person is way too cool. I'll never be able to talk to them. They're way too cool for me. Isn't that interesting? I mean, I still think you're really cool, but isn't that interesting? How do you feel right now?
Awkward. Maybe it's just my low self-esteem.
No, it's a compliment.
No, but my low self-esteem, I'm thinking, who would think that about me? Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. So that was my first impression of you.
Now, I remember, okay, my first impression isn't so much about you as about your t-shirt.
What t-shirt was I wearing?
You're wearing your Schrutz Farm
rock on
t-shirt. I remember thinking, oh, someone else who likes The Office.
Yeah.
See, when I meet people, when I first meet them, it won't be oh, I really want to be their friend. It'll just be something hey, I like that person's t-shirt. And then I get to know them a little bit more. And then it's I really want to be that person's friend. So you were one of those people. Hannah was one of those people. There were a few of those people at Evangel. What are you doing?
He's having a good time. Don't judge him.
But yeah. So we've known each other for 2 years?
I don't know. Time is an illusion.
Honestly, yeah, it's a construct.
Exactly. It measures the spinning of a huge rock in space.
Exactly.
Nothing means anything. Everything is fake.
We have a dog now.
Good. Okay. Would you like to hear the second question I have?
Yes.
So, the first thing is, tell us a bit about Afterburn. Just in general, what is it? Where is it? Why is it?
So, hi, Arpy. So Afterburn is a project I'm working on. It originally was my senior project. It was the same semester that both Megan and I were in senior capstone. But yeah, I just wanted to tell a story about a superhero. And her name's Afterburn. Or superhero name's Afterburn. And yeah, so right now what we're doing is trying to raise funds so that we can make it into an actual series. So yeah. I don't know what
Okay.
else you want me to say.
No, that's solid. That's solid. But you bring up an interesting thing that I think we should clarify. So you say series. What does that entail? How many episodes? Where will it go? What will it be? That sort of thing.
Oh, so currently, it's one season. I have enough for 3 seasons. Enough of a story for 3 seasons. Um, but it's like 8 episodes, each. I think that's kind of like a when I think about that, I think about like Stranger Things, how they only have like 8 episodes. I think also 8 to 10. I think it's 8. Um, and so it's like they're like 45-minute episodes. So kind of like a binging thing to do. But yeah, I have enough material for 3 seasons, but right now we're just planning the first season. So yeah.
Cool. And where did you first get inspiration for Afterburn, and how has that inspiration developed over time? If that's like specific movies or TV shows, or just like things in your everyday life, whatever.
Um, I don't quite remember where specific like inspiration for Afterburn was. He's just chilling here now. Um, I don't remember like exactly where like the initial inspiration for it was. I a lot of times like just have these weird ideas. I'm like, hey, this. But I have always really liked like the superhero movies, specifically like Marvel movies. Um, and I guess those would kind of be inspiration for stuff I would look at as far as like for inspiration for this project. Um, what was the other half of the question? I got distracted.
That's okay. How has your inspiration like developed over time? Because I don't know about you, but like for me, like I'll start with an idea, but then the more media I consume or the more I think about it, it like develops into something completely different. So,
Um, yeah, I think it's like definitely developed since like I had the initial idea. It's even developed since the capstone project that I did.
mhm.
Um, I think also partially like inspiration has come from um, you know, a group of writers that I got together, Megan being one of them, and then 3 others, Emily Groves, Holly Black, and Hannah Steyer. Why did I forget my best friend's name?
Oh, no.
Hannah, I'm sorry, I love you. but but yeah, no. You guys definitely helped me in figuring out some other stuff for this story. I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted by him.
No, that's okay. He's just looking at the door. Do you have a ghost in your apartment by chance?
No, he's chewing on a toy.
Oh, I thought he was just looking at the door with his head sideways. I'm like, that's definitely a ghost.
My apartment's haunted. Um, but yeah, no, you guys definitely helped me in figuring out some other stuff about the story. A lot of like, backstory and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I think also a lot of inspiration comes like when I, am developing the characters. Um, and it's cool because, I have some of the actors already figured out. And so I'm able to like, I'm like a visual person. And um, so able to like see, okay, like, Emma, playing Afterburn or playing Harley Jefferson, being able to like, see different scenes in my head. And yeah, because like another thing that really helps like inspiration wise is music.
Mm.
And so have you listened to like ah what are they? They're like cinematic covers of
Oh,
popular songs.
yes. They're so like they're so good.
They really are. And so like I'll listen to stuff like that and like other music that's kind of like been created for trailers. Um and so like while I'm listening to that I'm thinking like, "Oh, this could be a really cool scene." So yeah, just kind of like developing the story, music has been inspiration,
Mm.
stuff like that. Yeah.
I feel that. A lot of times, and I've done this since like I knew what music was. Like I've been doing this forever. Whenever like a song will come on, I'll like immediately start like creating a story around that song and like picturing like the opening scenes of the film that I would shoot according to this song. Like I still do it to this day. Like every single song I listen to, like I have a film for it. It's a
And I
problem.
think no, I don't think it's a problem. I think like because you're also a musician,
Hmm.
and so I think that's an advantage for musicians who are also like filmmakers. Because for a while it looked like, ow, RP, your nails are sharp. Um, he's currently trying to get back in my lap. No, no, you will distract me. Go sleep. Go sleep. Hi, yes, I see you. Go lay down. Night night. Go lay down. Go to sleep. I've been gone for a good portion of the day, so he's like, I know. I want to pay
Oh.
attention to you. He's just staring at me. Um, but yeah, like for a while it looked like through high school it looked like I was gonna go to school for music, and then it looked like somehow like something changed and like I wanted to go to school for film. But in reality, like I love stories my entire life.
Mhm.
Um and so it's not really like shocking to me I went to school for film. But having like that background in music, has really helped like, in story creating, because like I am able to like see images. Well, that makes me sound crazy.
No, I completely understand though. I think that's like a creative gene, like just being able to like picture things like, whatever. Okay, so how long you said that this was your capstone project. So how long would you say this has been in production? Have you had this idea way before capstone or did you like create it out of necessity for capstone?
Honestly, it was created out of necessity for capstone. So it hasn't even been a year.
Mm.
um I remember, and I'm pretty sure I've told you about this. So I was coming off of While the World Slept,
Mhm.
which was a film I did with my school, and had met some amazing actors. But one in particular, her name is, I'm so sorry, Emma, if I mispronounced your last name, but her name's Emma Raynagel, I think. I'm gonna get yelled at. No, she doesn't. No, I won't get yelled at. She's really sweet. But I met Emma through that, and coming off of that project, I was, creating this for my capstone, and I, was picturing her in the role of Harley, and kind of thinking, I'm like, I I imagine she's like busy with school, like I probably won't be able to work with her and like have her play Harley. And then Megan and I were holding our auditions together. And it also happened to be the audition night for the feature film that they do every semester. And so I think that really helped to our advantage because we had people coming in for both, like all three, like all three projects. Um, and so she auditioned for both of our projects. And she left, or Emma came in and then left. And I looked at Megan and I was like, hey, so here's the thing. I've actually been picturing her as Harley. And she goes, you can have her. I was like, yes.
I knew you had really, really enjoyed working with her on While the World Slept. And so like I was completely prepared to like give her away. Even though she's a
Honestly,
phenomenal actor and I would have loved to like work with her, but
yeah, there were so many times during While the World Slept. And even like there was I think you were there on that shoot with the fight in the alley for
Mhm.
Afterburn. Literally what you can do is just say, hey, are you comfortable doing this? And even if you think like, she might not be comfortable doing this, she's totally down. So like I think is one of the scenes in While the World Slept where we're like, hey, we have this idea, what if you just start crying uncontrollably, like, and she did it, and we're all like sitting in the next room watching it on the screen, and we're going like, this hurts. This really hurts to watch this. Like, because it's like it's so good and you feel like so like empathetic for her character.
Mhm.
But like in that fight scene in the alley for Afterburn, I asked her, I was like, hey, I have two ideas for this choreography. Whichever you're comfortable with, we can go with. Like, here's like the thing I'm thinking, but here's a milder version. I'm like, can you jump on his back and then he'll roll you off? I'm like, I'm totally understandable if you don't want to do that. And she goes, no, I'll do it. And I was like, what won't you do?
I
um
think that's a mark of a really good actor though, because like even obviously everyone has their limits, but like willing to just try anything and willing to go along with like maybe a more crazy idea. And I think that when you have that combined with someone, I think Emma does this as well, suggesting her own ideas. Like she's just as part of this character in this story as like the director is. And I think that's so important with an actor. And she embodies that completely.
yeah, she's a really good actress, and like all of the actors and actresses we're working with on Afterburn are just phenomenal. I thoroughly enjoyed working with them. um I like that. um I'm working with both Emma and Ethan, because Ethan also was one of the world's up, but that ended up being an accident because I
Yeah.
had one person set up to play Danny, and then he called out, like he was like, I can't do this. And so I had another person set up to play Danny, and then something happened and that fell through. And so kind of like a last minute, I was like, hey Ethan, can you come play this character? And he goes, yeah, I got you. And he apparently really likes the character. I was kind of telling them like some stuff I had planned, and so they were all like, yeah, like let's do this. But it's really funny, like working with both of them and them both kind of being in a romantic relationship again.
Yeah. I remember when you were like going through that fiasco of casting Danny and like people kept falling through. I like tried so hard to convince you to make Danny a girl character, and let me play Danny, even though I'm like the worst actress. I wanted so bad for Danny to like become a girl.
I don't think Evangel was ready for that.
No, I don't think they were either, but I was in full support.
I
And
would have done that. But yeah, no. Which that kind of like leads to like the whole thing of like, I guess something I should mention, and I've probably mentioned this in a TikTok video already, but this does have like LGBTQIA plus characters,
Mhm.
which I really like. That was just a note I wanted to add in there.
Yeah. And I think what makes this a proper a proper representation of the LGBTQIA plus community is that it's not an LGBTQIA plus story. Like it's just these people who identify this way in a story about nothing to do with that. And I think that's how you get proper representation in a film.
Mhm.
And so I'm really glad that this new generation of filmmakers are more adamant in doing that sort of thing.
Yeah, that was something I was talking about with one of our actors. His name is Dung, and he's playing Jensen. We were discussing like representation, and I'm like, dude, I can talk about this all day. um, and and I told all of them, I was like, I'm not really focusing on the whole romance thing on really any of the characters. Um, like I know there's Danny and Harley that are like, a couple throughout the entire thing. Um, but I'm not really focusing on them and their relationship. It's not like a Hunger Games thing where like there's a
Thank
love
goodness.
triangle. Like, no, like, that's kind of like why partially why like I'm not really focusing on romances. But also I feel like we get a lot of stories like that anyway. And so yeah, I do think it's important that we have representation and it not just be like, hey, like all of these characters have like no, like it's just something like that's just a part of you. And so
Yeah.
that's what Dung and I were talking about. It's like, yeah, this is just a part of us. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, I really love that. In my capstone, I one of my characters, she is a lesbian, but unfortunately production got cut short, but I had the idea of like not having really any representation because again it's a Christian college, but I was going to buy a lesbian flag mug because there's a scene where they're both drinking coffee and I just wanted that in there. So like people knew, but like it wasn't a big deal. It was just like her character.
Yeah.
But it all fell through because of COVID. But yeah, I just love the idea of like not focusing on that at all because it's not just like people who identify as anything in that community. It's not like their entire personality. It's like
Yeah.
it's just one aspect of them and they are so much more than that. So like why do you have to only have films that represent them being about that specific thing?
Yeah. Like I think it's great that we do have like films and things like that,
Yeah.
because like going from like the aspect of like mental health issues, like we're starting to get that kind of representation as far as like, accurately seeing what depression or anxiety or what PTSD or what schizophrenia, like seeing what these actually are. um and so I think it's great that we do have content that's like, this is what the entire story is about, because like, we do need stories like that, and that is sharing our story, but we also don't need every single project that has to do with like like a mental illness, or like with a sexuality, or with a gender identification, or with ethnicity. Like, there are other aspects to all of these groups, just like there are like a lot of aspects to straight white people. um so like, you know complex characters, like we're all complex characters, we're all complex people, and so yeah, we need stories that just have that information in there. It's just a part of their character. And yeah, like, you might see, you moved my light. You might see something that, like, reminds you that, like, oh yeah, like, this character is bisexual, or this person has depression. Like, you might see something like that because it does pop up in our day-to-day lives, but we need a story that's not just so focused on that. And so,
I agree.
not saying that like my project is like the ultimate, like, not
Yeah,
saying that at all. I'm glad that I have actors that are, wanting to do that, and are kind of of the same mind of, we need a story, something like this. So
mhm. I'm so glad that like this generation, obviously this is a blanket statement, but this generation is way more open to different ethnicities and honestly any different minority group, and like we want representation for all of those as a whole. And so I think that as Hollywood, like, or even independent filmmaking, any sort of filmmaking, as we grow into those fields, we're going to see more of that, and it's going to be honestly amazing. We're going to have more women directing, more people that are non-binary directing and making these stories and acting in these stories, and people of different ethnicities and people of color. Like, all of these beautiful things are going to start happening, and not just white people stories are going to be told. And I'm so excited for that.
yeah, whenever I think about that, it's like, yeah, like, I do think our generation has been more open and understanding. And I think a lot of that has to do is we grew up seeing these people groups being
Mhm.
oppressed. I think that's like one of the biggest things. Um, you know, we grew up. When did the Westboro church thing? Like, there was a real big thing, Baptist
Yeah,
church. They're
we
still doing stuff, but
yeah,
um
I think we were, at least I was, because you're older than me. I was
oh yeah,
middle school or early high school, I think, when that happened. We were pretty
yes,
young.
yes, like, so we saw stuff like that, and we've grown up with, social media, and being, pretty much um alerted when anything happened.
Hmm.
And so now we have, video record and photo record of things like police brutality, that, you know, us growing up seeing these oppressed people, and, having that, that information, at our fingertips, it has made us more understanding.
Hmm.
You
And right
know,
along, sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
oh no, you're good. I kind of just forgot my thoughts.
Right along with like seeing these awful, awful things happening, we, along with that, got educated on like other minorities and on other parts of the world. Like, we got to see the positivity and all of that and the good things of all of that. And then we saw those people being discriminated against in our own country, specifically the United States. And so
Well,
that
we're in Australia. What?
that dichotomy of seeing both of those things happen simultaneously, I think it makes a lot of our generation realize that not only has this been going on for since the beginning of time, that it needs to stop, and now is the time for it to stop. So the next question I have for you is, what did slash does the development process look like for you? Like, how do you go from idea to script to film? Like, how does that all work for you?
I don't have a set way of doing it.
That's a mood and a half, because same.
Like, so sometimes um I will start with this idea. Um and sometimes I'll do it the correct way, and I'll develop my characters first and make them, complex. And
Right. Because you have to do like premise and then characters and then the end and then like work backward. Ew.
yeah, and so sometimes I will do the correct thing and develop my characters. Yeah, so sometimes I'll do that. Sometimes I will start with scene ideas I already have because I'm like, this would look cool.
Right.
Like I'm currently for like another series that I'm working on in the future, have this idea for it involves music. There's a song called "You Can Close Your Eyes." I can't remember who it's by, um, but it's like, kind of like an old kind of folky song, and I'm thinking of like this really like emotional thing happening during it. Um, and so like I have thoughts like those, and so like
Right.
I'll plan with that. Um, but essentially, like, what it's looked like for Afterburn has been trying to do it the right way, and I
Mhm.
have my premise, develop my characters, or at least develop them enough for the capstone project. Um, and so since deciding that we wanted to do this as a series, trying to develop the characters more, um, work on this kind of is the where we're going,
Mhm.
kind of like an outline of the entire season. For me, it's I kind of have like I know kind of the rough outline of the entire series,
Mhm.
um but right now just focusing on the first season, and then from there what I'm supposed to do, and I haven't quite done this. I'm just kind of writing it random right now, but I do like an outline of the episode, and then write the episode. That's the correct way how you're supposed to do it, and how I'm kind of doing it. But I have also been thinking I think this would be a cool scene, and then I've
Mhm.
also gotten distracted because I'm in the middle of what we call peak right now at work. And so I'm working pretty much every day except one.
Do you prefer writing like for film or for TV or for like this series thing? Like which do you prefer? Because I've noticed that you write a lot of different series or like have ideas for like series.
Can you hear that?
Yes.
He's distracting me. um I'm about to like kick him out of my room, but that'd be mean. Um so so I think I like that's difficult.
I know.
I think like I like both.
Mhm.
Um I definitely have been working on a lot of series lately. Originally the one I was talking about earlier, like the future one I'm working on, that originally was planned as just a film. Um but then talking with Hannah about it, she was like, you should make this a series instead. I'm like, okay, yeah, I guess. I guess I could tell more of a story. Um I don't know, because I think probably series might be my favorite thing to write, because that's usually I watch more TV than I do movies. Um, and I think it's the fact that like my attention span's not that great. So I can pay attention for like 30 minutes of watching a TV show, or like 45 minutes depending on how long it is. Um, but I do also like working on movies and writing movies. Sometimes it's just difficult to sit there for like 2.5 hours to watch a movie because my brain's like, I gotta do something. Um, so yeah, I don't know. That's a difficult question to answer.
I really love your answer to it though, because we're the opposite for basically the exact same reason. I hate watching TV. I love watching movies, but I hate watching TV because I get so bored because my attention span is so low that I can't like keep with the same idea for like 3 seasons. Like it's too much for me. I get so bored. But I really like writing for TV because you get so attached to characters, and I think like
Yeah.
characters are like my favorite part, and you get so attached and you get to tell so much of their story. But like I would choose a movie any day.
Yeah, I think that's like one of my favorite things about stories in general is just the characters.
Mhm.
You can really start to develop like, you know, develop a love for them. Like as
Mhm.
we were talking before we started recording about characters like McGonagall and no McGonagall?
Mhm.
Yeah, McGonagall. Of her first name Minerva, and I was like, wait a
Yeah.
minute. I think I got the name wrong. No, but like Professor McGonagall and Molly Weasley. Um, I absolutely, you know, I love their characters and just like how they stick up for Harry.
Mhm.
Um, but also like just with all the TV that I've watched, there are certain characters I'm like that I love no matter what.
Mhm.
Um, like I love Todd from BoJack Horseman. Um, I love this rhymes with Todd, but I love Bob from Bob's Burgers. Um, and I think for shut
I
up.
sorry, I will always hold a special place for Bob in my heart, like, always.
Honestly,
Oh.
yeah. He's just like there's so many times where like he says something and I'm like, that's me.
Right? He's just so relatable, and I just there are so many reasons that I won't go into on this, but, like, so many reasons that
he's he's a
he's important
fantastic
to me.
character.
Yeah.
um, but they're like so there are those characters that I love, and then there are those characters that mean something to me, like personally. And so yeah, I think like a big thing for me is just wanting to put characters out there that somebody whoever you know is watching this show or watching whatever project I work on, that they can look at that character and say, oh, that's me, like I can see a part of myself in them.
Mhm.
um and so yeah, like I think just having those characters that you can relate to, that's what I really want to do. So
Yeah. I think that's the heart of storytelling, because if you can't find someone to relate, or because I think sometimes it's not necessarily like relate. I don't know. It's weird. Like, so for example, Spike Lee, like he makes a lot of like obviously like black cinema. And I think his films are absolutely phenomenal and I absolutely love them, but I can't necessarily relate because they're they're black stories. And obviously I'm not black, but I appreciate them and I think they're amazing. And so I think there's that sort of cinema, but then there's also like where you connect and you see yourself in that. And I think that is genuinely the heart of filmmaking, even for like Spike Lee, just because I don't relate. Obviously, there are like whole communities that do, and that's so, so important. And that's why he's so big, and that's why he has such a big voice. It's because
yeah,
that's everything.
yeah, I think that kind of goes along like the lines with representation as well.
Mm-hmm.
um because like what I tell people, and I think I mentioned this in the first episode of my podcast, where I grew up seeing people that looked like me.
Mm-hmm.
I am a white person if you can't tell. But I grew up seeing that, and I know how much of a blessing that was. Um, and it wasn't until recently that I learned that other people didn't get that.
Yeah.
That's like why Moana was such a big thing.
Right.
And like why we often talk about the Disney princesses, like a good majority of them are white.
Mm-hmm.
um and yeah, like we kind of like there was like a little bit of a breakthrough with Princess and the Frog and like having a black character, but for a good majority of the film she was a frog.
And I think about that too, like where like we grew up with representation of ourselves. Like, and so I always think like because Jurassic Park is like what made me love cinema, what made me want to do it. So I always think like, what if I hadn't seen myself in that film? Like, what if I hadn't been given that representation? Like, would I be where I am today? And I never want someone to like not have that opportunity. Like, that's so unfair because we've been handed it just because of the color of our skin, and like people get it taken away for the same reason. And
Yeah,
that's not cool.
because like yeah, it was so important to us being able to see people that looked like us, and it did help us get to where we are.
Mhm.
um and yeah, obviously like I want you know people that I know, people that that I don't know, to be able to see themselves
Yeah.
on the screen, because that is important, that is empowering.
So this question, hmm, I'm not gonna preface it, but if you need me to preface it afterwards, I'll
Okay.
epilogue it.
Okay. That doesn't scare me.
So like, what are you hoping to achieve with Afterburn? I know that's like a loaded question, but
To take over the world, that's what I want to do.
yes, that is the right answer.
um but for a good majority of my life I've wanted to open my own production studios, and this is kind of the start of that. um And so it's called Running Rabbit Productions. There will be like a cool little spinning logo with this at the beginning or end. So you've either already seen it or
Or
you're
you're going
going
to.
to see it. um, And yeah, so essentially to actually answer the question, I really like behind the scenes stuff and that's what I want to do. So partially like I want to have like that good time, and do the behind the scenes stuff, be able to work with actors and, do what I love doing. But also kind of like how this can be a sustainable thing is to be able to start running Rabbit Productions officially, and be able to continue creating content, because that's really what I want to do with my life is just create content.
Okay, so next question. This is like the opposite of the last question. What do you want audiences to get out of this project?
um I want them to, appreciate the project. I want them to like it and not hate it. um
Valid. Please don't hate my creations.
um but I think what I really want them to get out of it is, what it means to be a hero, um and how we all kind of like, there are 12 characteristics of being a hero. And even though like if we don't show all of those characteristics, I do believe that, all of us have something in us that can help us be a hero. And being a hero doesn't mean like, you have superpowers. Um, do not, and I repeat, do not get a spider and make it radioactive and let it bite you.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you there.
Do not listen to Megan.
Listen to me.
Do not listen to Megan. No.
Yes.
um, but like being a hero doesn't mean like you have superpowers. Being a hero means like you stand up for the little guy. And you protect others. There's a line from Afterburn, that a hero, I'm probably going to get the order wrong, but a hero protects, a hero fights, and a hero loves. And I'll take this kind of to a Christian level. We have a scripture that says, faith, hope, and love, but the most important of these is love. And I think love is the most important thing. Even if you're not a Christian, we can still be friends. That's fine. I don't discriminate. um, but I think love is the most important thing. Not just in the Christian realm, but also in like, just in the world. I think if we had more love, we wouldn't be dealing with some of the things that we're dealing with right now. So yeah, I want people to to see that they can be a hero. I want them to feel empowered by, the representation that we have. Know that it isn't just, we want to have the token characters so like we can say that we're diverse. Because also we're making this in Missouri, so like I don't know exactly how diverse the characters are going to be. But to know that, this is a show where we do focus on love, and that I hope, that with my cast and my crew that we'll be able, to care about each other, and knowing that, the creators of this show, we want to express love. We want to express that message, being a hero and loving others. So
Beautiful. And we're actually going to come back to that and we're going to touch on like being a hero and stuff a bit later.
okay.
Before that, we have a few more questions.
Okay.
But it does still have to do with characters, which obviously like has a lot to do with this, with being a hero anyway. So, which character do you most relate to and why? I know, I figured this one might trip you up a little bit, but that's why I wanted to ask it.
I gotta think of all the characters real quick.
Right.
I think there are two characters I relate to the most. So I relate to Sky, mainly because Sky is actually a representation of myself. Sky is non-binary, and asexual. So as part as like having representation, I don't, as far as I know, I haven't seen a non-binary character. I imagine there is a non-binary character out there somewhere in media, but I just haven't seen it yet. Um, and so, and that way, yeah, I would relate to Sky also in the fact that in the way that, they do want to protect others. Um, and then also I feel like I kind of relate to Kason a little bit. Um, because I don't have the backstory that he does. I'm not gonna go full into that because I'll give stuff away. But um, I have had situations happen where like I consider it trauma. Um, and before, I've gotten a lot better because like I've been in therapy and stuff like that. But like beforehand, um, I did suppress. I did hold stuff in and felt like I had to be the tough one. I had to be the strong one for my friends. Um, and I think with my best friend learning that, you know, I can't help others if I am hurting. Um, and that's something I want Kason to learn. I'm not entirely sure if he'll learn it. Um, but yeah, I think I relate to Sky and Kason.
That's interesting. I think that because I know a bit more about Kason than the average person, because I was there for shooting and stuff. But
Oh yeah, that's right. You are.
I think that that is like an aspect of his character that a lot of people can relate to. I think that a lot of people struggle with emotions, and a lot of people have experienced things that have they've maybe suppressed or that have taught them to suppress their emotions. And so I think that's a really important thing
Yeah.
to have represented in media.
Yeah. I think the thing I like most, not just about Kason, but about Kason, Elena, and Jensen,
Hmm.
is that they all had like, like the same thing happened to all of them. They, grew up in the same house. Um, but I really want to kind of explore how all three of them, have reacted
Hmm.
to, the things they grew up with. Because like, we love sad stories. But I think that's also like representation for, people who grew up in, scenarios like that. Um, and, people react to it differently, people respond to it differently, and they come out with different outcomes. And, I really want to do that with that family, with that trio. So,
Yeah, I think there's like a big stigma, and maybe I'm just making it up in my head or making it bigger than it seems, but I tend to do that. Um, but I think there is a stigma for people not reacting how other people expect. Like a lot of the general masses expect you to react in a specific way to a specific experience, but like everyone is made up of completely different things. So you can experience the exact same thing as another person and turn out completely different. And I think that's another really important thing to express and make that a bigger conversation than what it is. Okay, are you ready for this next question?
sure.
You kind of touched on because you said that Sky was sort of based off of aspects of yourself, but are any of your other characters based off of real life people or like people in your life?
Not this story particularly. I do have another story that I've been working on since I was like 12.
I
Um
love that.
in that one, I there are a lot of people like that are based off of people that I know/knew.
Mhm.
Um this one not so much. Um at least not real life people. I think Harley is kind of based off of Lily from While the World Slept.
Oh yeah,
Um And I think also because like they're played by the same actress.
right.
Like I had said, like, coming off of While the World Slept, I knew this actress. And so like I was picturing her, in this part because I was like, yeah, she could do this. But yeah, as far as like real life, no, I don't think so. That might be a disappointing answer.
No, that's okay. It's just because I know that a lot of people tend to do that, even if it's just like a subconscious thing. Like I forget what I was reading, but I think it was an author. Like he wrote an entire character based on like someone he didn't like in real life and named it with the same name, but forgot to change the name. And so like this real life person is in this book. And so like this author, I think honestly, I think it was Rick Riordan with the Percy Jackson series. I think he wrote a character based on a real life person, but forgot to change the real life person's name in the book.
It's like that scene in The Office when they're reading Threat Level Midnight. And so he changed the name like with like search like find and
Yeah,
replace, but
but
it
he
didn't.
misspelled it once.
Dwight.
Dwight.
And the reason why Dwight is upset is because he spelled his name wrong.
Not
Because
because
WDWIGHT, Dwight.
Again, that show.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. So we're gonna circle back around to the whole concept of being a hero now. So what is a hero to you? And I know you said like there are like 12 aspects or like whatever. So go into that.
Yeah, there are 12 aspects. Do I remember some of them?
Okay. Just like maybe tell us like the most important ones or something.
um
If that's even fair. I mean, I'm sure all 12 are just as important as all
they
of
are, yeah, they are important. I guess like I think self-sacrifice is a really important one.
them.
Um but with that I do have kind of like a clause, I guess. I think so for a while my favorite verse, and it's still one of my favorite scripture verses, is John, it's either John 13:15 or John 15:13. I get the numbers mixed up all the time. But essentially the verse is love have no greater love than this, than he who lays down his life for his friend. And that's always been a really important verse to me, is because I do have, and like Megan, you can attest to this, I do have this like protection over my friends. I want to protect them. If anybody comes up against them, I kind of believe I'm a pacifist, like in theory. But I also feel like
Sorry, that just because same, but I always threaten to beat you up. So
yeah, like I don't think I could really do that much damage. Like I do want to learn how to kickbox, but
right.
um in the same way, like I want to help my friends when they're going through something difficult. But like I said earlier, I have realized that I can't help people if I am hurting. And I kind of think of it like this, like if I was a doctor, which no one wants that. Biology was not my strongest thing. So yeah, no one wants that. Um, but if I was a doctor, like if I'm sick, I can't treat other people because I'm sick.
Hmm.
It's the same way that it's like if I'm not doing well, then I can't protect others. And so I think having this kind of this balance between protecting others but also realizing when you need to take care of yourself. Um, so I think that's really what a hero is to me, as someone who um, is willing to lay down their lives, or willing to, self-sacrifice and, be there for their friends. They're not selfish. They're, and not even just their friends, like for, anybody, stick up for the little guy. But also being able to say, I need to take a step back. Because like this was something I was thinking about this morning, is like, yeah, I have had friends where I'm like, I love them, but I have been able to say, as I've gotten more emotionally healthy, I need to take a step back from this because I'm not okay. And this friendship, this relationship just isn't working because I'm not okay. I may come back, I may not. Um, it really just, it depends. But like, do you know that I love and care about you? So yeah. And even like if you're not there yet, that's, I don't think like if you don't know how to, do that, I'm not saying that, I don't think you're a hero. I think just, recognizing that, yeah, that's something to work towards.
Yeah.
and not always throwing yourself into battle, i.e., a character named Deku and in My Hero Academia.
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that's what a hero is to be.
That's very interesting. I remember very specifically in some of the last days of shooting in Led Us Stray, we had specific conversations about having to step away. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
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 I remember that. And I think that you honestly are like very mature in that sense and very able to like recognize when it's not a healthy situation or like you're not in a healthy place. And I think that's absolutely phenomenal.
thank you.
Yeah, you're a hero.
I'm gonna get really awkward because I don't like compliments.
That's okay. I'm gonna give them to you anyway.
Thanks.
Yeah. I also think that like you said, not everyone, like no one's perfect. It's a learning curve, and it shows being able to recognize that this is something you need to work on shows a sense of maturity, and I think that also shows you being a hero if you can recognize the faults within yourself and being able to even like having the bravery to take those steps to fix yourself in those ways. I think it's very interesting.
Yeah.
And you mentioned like not just immediately jumping into battle, and that reminds me of um two very specific things that I try to live my life by. One of them, I think it's a verse in James actually, where it's like you're quick to listen and slow to anger.
Hmm.
I think that's a very important thing. And I think that also ties back to like, being on the hero side isn't always like the right thing. Like you need to genuinely listen and don't just like jump to anger. But also alternatively, I've had someone describe anger as like it's important and it's an emotion that we have for a reason, and it's a fuel to motivate us to make change. And I think that's another important thing, but we can't overuse it. We can't just like
Yeah.
jump into this battle. And so I really like that. And I think it ties really well into what you said about being what a hero is.
Yeah. I think kind of bringing this back to scripture, that I think a lot of times we as Christians, we tend to think like, um, and like we both grew up in, similar, like, well, not similar, like we grew up in like the same denomination.
Mhm.
Um, and like there's this emphasis on like, don't have anger, like, no.
Mhm.
But I think like, there's a whole part in the gospel where Jesus literally went into a temple
Well, then
and just
perfect, man.
been
That's
tables.
righteous anger, and he used it as a
Yeah.
motivation.
And
Yeah.
so like I think like having anger, like two different scenarios. You're angry enough that you want to kill somebody, or you're angry enough that you want to you're gonna protest. Like, just looking at we're gonna talk about police brutality here real quick.
Let's. I'm here for it.
But yeah, like you can be angry enough to do something damaging,
Mhm.
um and that's not a good use of your anger. um and that's what I think police brutality. But as we saw with the death of George Floyd, um that seemed to be like, yes, we had seen a lot of people before that, um and you know kind of even myself, like, I'm ashamed that I didn't really think to act when you know when like one of the first black people that we heard, like, was killed because of police brutality. um and so I wish I had acted, but for some reason, and I think I can't really explain why, this exactly was what ignited and lit the fuse for a good majority of America to be like, okay, yeah, no, something needs to happen, needs to stop. And I think that was a righteous anger of, we're angry enough because the government's not doing anything. We are seeing this happen more and more often. It shouldn't be happening at all. um and so that kind of like lit, like, excuse my French, but that lit the fire under our asses to be like, yes, this is what we need to do. And so yeah, I think that's a good use of anger. But like, just being angry enough to kill someone, that's damaging, but this is positive. So
I completely agree. And I think that because a lot of people have this negative view of anger, which is very outdated, They're using the anger that we are feeling because of like all of this police brutality and all of these awful things. They're using that anger against us and saying, well, we're just awful people, when like these people who are protesting are just bad and they're just violent, and because they're feeling this anger, but this anger is so important and it's the reason they're finally getting heard, and it should honestly be applauded that finally like they're doing something about it and they're being heard, because for like Black Lives Matter has been a movement for such a long time, but we're just now hearing about it in the mainstream media, and that's because their anger has finally risen to, like, as you said, it's the fuse. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a very interesting, yeah, that's a really good representation of like how you can use anger
Yeah.
and the maturity of it. Yeah. Okay, so back on track, I have one final bonus question. Are you
Okay.
do you have
I guess.
good, get ready. Do you have any tips for people wanting to pursue film? And that could be in like television or film or independent or like anything.
Um, I don't know if you should take advice from me.
Same.
I, just recently graduated college. Um, but something I've been thinking about a lot as far as in like, the fact that I really like directing. Um, I don't think okay, so I don't say this to like, boast about myself because I still don't really understand why people say this. But I've had two different encounters. One was with my high school English teacher, and part of me thinks she just said that because, I was her student. But she helped me with a short film. And she told me I was a really good director, and I was like, "Oh, thanks." I don't know why, but thanks. Um, and then I also in an email that I never responded to, and I'm so sorry, Cameron. Uh, I'm terrible at responding to things. But Cameron, who currently is playing Kason, um, he when we were working on my capstone, and I told him I was like, hey, like I want to offer you this role. Um, he told me he was like, I've been hearing things about you, and like I've really wanted to work with you, and I don't know why. No, he didn't say that. I'm like,
Right.
I don't know why. But
Right.
like when I think about like, what I guess what I think my strengths are, I don't know why I'm holding that button. It's a My Hero Academia button. I just have them on my desk here. Um, but when I think about like what I think my strengths are as far as directing, I think the fact that, I've been writing since I've loved stories since I was born. And I've been writing since I think I was like maybe 7 or 8. Um, and so I think having that understanding of stories really helps in, directing because like I understand the story, I understand the characters. But kind of more on the technical side, um, and this is something I really realized while we were working on While the World Slept, because as part of like what we call our competent crew, which was just our executive staff, there were three of us who had been chief editors on EU films projects, and one of those was my assistant director, the other was my cinematographer, and then I had been a chief editor. And having that experience really helped us in figuring out like, okay, this is how we can do this because this is how we can cut. um and so I think having kind of like that mental part of like this is how the story goes, and then also having that visual part of this is how it can look, really helped me as a director. And so essentially what I would say with whatever role you're going for, if you want to be a director, I think this best applies. you know have some understanding of story and have some understanding of a technical thing. If editing like technical, okay, so technical stuff like editing I'm good with, but like cinematography not my strongest point, and you can see that in my capstone. And sound's not my strongest point either. Um but I do have some understanding of how those work. And having editing under my belt, having something technical such as cinematography, audio, or editing, I think can really help in directing. And I think it can really help in anything you go for. Um, because essentially, like, and this might sound kind of cheesy, but like your crew is what makes the film. Um, like, yes, you have actors and they're part of what makes the film too, but it's not just like you by yourself. It's not like resting on one person. Because I think Megan, we both have had this experience where somebody, a part of the staff, has not really fulfilled what they're supposed to do and how much pressure that puts on everybody else. And that ends up with us not having the greatest products that we'd want. Um, and so, yeah, big part of making a film, making something like this is it's more than just you. And so kind of having an understanding of how all the other parts work, even if you're not like, technologically, minded, um, and it doesn't quite make sense to you, just understanding the theory of, this is what it takes to be a cinematographer. They have to work with like exposure and the two other things that I can't think of right now.
I love that.
Even if you're like not technologically minded, just understanding that like cinematographer has a bunch of different numbers to work with. Audio, they have to really listen as far as like, to hear any sound. Like we used to have a really crappy boom pole that like if you just slightly moved it, you heard it. Um, so yeah, I think just having an understanding of all the different moving parts um, will really help with whatever you're wanting to do.
hmm And I think a comprehensive film degree is always the way to go. Like you can do, there's so many different film programs, but a lot of them make you like choose a focus. And I think that's really great, but it's also so important to be able to understand how each job functions because
Yeah,
film is truly a collaborative effort. Like it's not just one single person. It is like literally every single person doing their job completely. And if
yeah,
you even have one of those missing links, like your whole project is going to change. And so if you've never been an assistant director or if you've never been an editor, you don't understand what exactly that person needs. And so you can't be expected to run them and you can't be expected to trust them. And so being able to understand, even if you're not good at it, what each job entails is super important. And the best way to do that is having to do it.
yeah. If you want to help us make Afterburn, go check out our GoFundMe or setting stuff up for Redbubble, which will have like our
I figured I'd have a fun background for the goodbye.
um but yeah, Redbubble will have some merch with like the Running Rabbit logo and the Afterburn logo. Um is that the Queen concert?
No,
Oh my
not at all.
gosh.
So sorry. You can continue doing your actual thing. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, you're good. Also, if you're finding this on YouTube and you also happen to be on TikTok and you haven't found us there, go find us there. I don't remember what the name of our TikTok is right now.
Rip. Also,
But
plug your personal socials.
do we actually want people to find my personal social?
If you want, I want to become an Instagram influencer. I'm just kidding. Ew.
Okay, yeah. So you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at I don't really do anything on either. I haven't posted in a while.
I
But
get
it's
I do some fire stories on my Instagram if you want to follow me.
um but it's torpedoes and dragons without any vowels. And then also TikTok is the same.
Mm.
Go follow Megan. I don't remember what her
Um,
handle is, but
I don't do TikTok because I'm not cool enough, but my Instagram handle is Megan is right over there.
hopefully next week we'll be interviewing one of the actors. I don't know who yet because
Me.
I have not talked to any of them about it.
Okay.
But yeah, we're gonna stop recording now.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for
Bye.
listening and watching. Okay, bye.